our next topic, back to the New York Jets. Speaking of the NFL draft, a lot of people have brought up the idea of trading up now. So they were aggressive and went out there and traded for Hassan Reddick. They trade for Morgan Moses. And a lot of Jet fans are hoping that they trade up and potentially target a receiver at pick number 5 with either Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr., or you have some who would like to see them trade up and go for like a Joe Alt even at that point. But your thoughts on the Jets using future draft capital to get up into, I guess we'll call it top 5 or 6 in the draft and go for a blue chipper rather than stay put and draft someone at pick 10.
So from the Giants' perspective, I welcome it because it pushes quarterbacks down the board, hopefully, most likely, if they jump up, try and take a playmaker, rather than a team jumping up and taking a quarterback. A playmaker going off the board means there's a higher likelihood of the Giants landing a QB. So I like it from that perspective. But from the Jets' perspective, I'm not crazy about it. I don't think that it's necessary to move up into the top 10 and land one of these. I know they're blue chip wide receivers, but again, this team has a lot of talent. And I think that this is a deep draft class at the wide receiver position where maybe trading down and taking one of those immediate starters in the back end of the first round. Maybe it's not a blue chip player, but the potential's there. The developmental upside is still there on those guys, and they're very good players. And then you're adding more picks for the middle rounds to add depth to this team. And I think that the starting lineup is really solid for the Jets. And now it's about adding depth and, maybe collecting more picks and adding more talent throughout the roster. And maybe some see it differently, but that's just how I feel. And I don't know if trading up, making that splash into the top 10 for, some star-studded blue chip playmaker is going to be the right move for this team. But I think that trading down, especially considering they don't have that second round pick, that's the move that I would go with. How much draft capital can you realistically continue to sacrifice just to get these flashy splash players? I think that you need to continue to build depth on this team, long-term pieces throughout this roster. This is a pretty aged roster, in my opinion. Even this move for Reddick that we just discussed, it's an aged player. You're getting a lot of veterans in here. I think it's time to add young depth with developmental upside to the rest of this roster.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. And I think you can make a strong case on either side on this one for the trade up, crowd. It's going to be, well, you really want to go all in for this window of opportunity with Aaron Rodgers, and that a player in the top, we'll call it top 5, because I don't think the Giants are trading out, but the Chargers seem like a team who maybe could trade out, or Arizona, yes, but I think a team's going to be looking to move up for a quarterback with them. But anyway, a player in the top 5 is more likely to help you immediately than a player at either 10 or move back to the middle of the first round than a day 2 player. I like the idea of a trade back because I really like this offensive line crop, and I would like to take an offensive lineman in the first round while also adding a round 2 receiver. I think, if you move back and you end up with 2 picks in the top 50, one at like, I don't know, we'll say like 14 and 48 or whatever, whatever it ends up being. I think you can make a case that that's the better way to go, having 2 swings in the top 50. But, I'm not going to lie to you. The thought of a Malik Neighbors pairing up with Garrett Wilson and, Mike Williams and Aaron Rodgers, that could be a really exciting offense too. So I'm not going to, put that idea down because I think there's a world where that could make sense for this Jets team.
It could, and it ties into going all in on the Super Bowl window for sure. But the draft, to me, is just not where you go all in on those windows. I think you've done that already. If you're the New York Jets, you've added talent across the board to this roster. I really do continue to praise this roster as being one of the best in the NFL. The starting lineup on both sides of the ball, I think, is stacked if everybody stays healthy. But that's the key here, is if everybody stays healthy. What happens if these guys don't stay healthy? What's your game plan then? Who are your backups? Who are the depth pieces on this team? And I think those can be found through the NFL draft. So that's where I lean. And even saying, yeah, you're more likely to get an immediate starter with the 5th pick than you are with the 10th pick, but this is still a top 10 pick. Whoever is drafted in that spot should be an immediate starter, and you should be able to find the player that is fringe blue chip or is an impactful player from year 1 with that selection. So it's a top 10 pick. I think that's enough to say, hey, we can make one of those splash picks in the number 10 spot. And if not, again, you mentioned a lot of depth on this offensive line class, the wide receiver class. there's talent across the board. And I think that the Jets need to continue to add talent across the board to this roster, not in the starting lineup anymore, but now to the backup roles. And again, even if they do trade down, maybe they take Adonai Mitchell with the 20th overall pick if they trade down to there. You're expecting that guy to start right away at the wide receiver spot. And maybe he's just as dynamic as in year one as whoever goes in the top five just because of situation. He's catching the ball from Aaron Rodgers. He's playing with other great receivers like Mike Williams and Garrett Wilson. So I think that there's more to the argument of trading down or sticking and picking than there is to trading up and sacrificing more assets. But you do make good points. It would definitely fit into the win now mindset. There are reasons to trade up. There are reasons to trade down. I just prefer the trade down method for the Jets in this case.
There you go. Johnny says everyone hit the like button, so make sure to follow along with Johnny's advice there. First State Jets back says rarely do short-term needs and long-term needs overlap. We are lucky we can help left tackle insurance and long-term solution in one shot. I think that's kind of where we were both going with that one, especially in a trade down scenario. And a name that I think gets brought up a lot now for the Jets, but one that I think it makes a lot of sense is Troy Fautanu, where he can play tackle or guard and has played on the left side of the line. So there's really, outside of center, he could play 4 spots on the offensive line. And, the first guy who goes down, whether it's tackle or guard, you could plug him in. And if he's as good as what some people think, he might even push John Simpson at left guard to start this season. So I don't really look at it as if the Jets were to take an offensive lineman that it's like you're wasting the pick because he's not going to essentially be listed as a day one starter. But that guy would play a significant amount, I think, with Tyron Smith's injury concern and just the number of offensive linemen you usually use in a season.
Yeah, completely agreed. I think that guy's going to get on the field at some point in the year. And even if it's not as a starter, you can at least put him in on those jumbo packages and have him be your extra offensive lineman in some situations like that, just to get him on the field during his rookie year. But I think without a doubt, Tyron Smith is going to miss time with an injury at some point this season. And you can probably say the same for a couple of other guys on that offensive line. It doesn't hurt to have that depth. And I think that line of thinking right there, where you're getting short-term insurance at a position and a long-term solution, that is the right line of thinking. I think that's really, really intuitive right there. So if I were the Jets, that would be the strategy that I would lean towards.